That is something that I've seen over and over again, where people have an expectation, have a belief system, and they come here and that belief system is reflected in their experiences. POW Hawaii Tours asked an interesting question yesterday during the live stream that I wanted to get into a little bit deeper. The question was, how do locals feel about outsiders moving here? So first let me say that, you know, the majority of the population of the island is outsiders. The majority is outsiders. Even among the indigenous population, the Carolinians, you know, are from Mariana Islands. So they, the tradition of migration is nothing new to these islands. We have contract workers, we have people from Australia, we're right in the middle of Asia, so we've got Koreans and Japanese and Filipinos and Chinese all living here. So the concept of having outsiders here is nothing new. What I can tell you though is that yes, there are going to be certain stereotypes that follow you around, and I mentioned this in my Jamaican in Asia channel. There are going to be certain stereotypes that follow you around based on your nationality. So, you know, it's widely known that Americans are a certain way. It's widely known that Chinese are a certain way, or Koreans or somewhat. So there are going to be stereotypes that you can either choose to perpetuate or choose to break out of. But your overall acceptance within the community is going to be based, as I mentioned in the live stream, on how you as an individual act. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, what is more important, more so than how the locals perceive you, is something else very important, and I really believe this. So I'll tell you a story, and I've read this in several different books on personal development, personal growth. So the story goes something like this. So there's an old man who lives just outside of town, and he lives at sort of like a crossroads where travelers from distant lands come, and they can either make a right and go to the town, or they can keep going along the highway to another destination. So he lives right there, so he sees a lot of travelers coming and going, and he's sitting out there with his grandson, and a traveler comes by and says, hey old man, I'm thinking of going to this town. What are the people there like? And the old man says, well, let me ask you, what are the people like where you come from? And he says, well, you know, the people where I come from are pretty nice. You know, they're very friendly, they're welcoming, and it's, you know, it's a good place. I just want to see the world. And the old man says, well, I think you'll find the people in this town pretty much the same way. And the fellow goes, and he, you know, goes into town. A few minutes later, another traveler comes by, and he says, hey old man, I'm thinking of going to this town. How are the people in this town? And the old man says again, how are the people where you come from? And he says, well, they're a bad lot, that's why I'm leaving. You know, they're cold and unfriendly, and they're nosy, and you know, and I don't like them. And the old man says, well, I think you'll find the people in this town to be pretty much the same way as well. So he says, yeah, I figured, and he kept going. So of course his grandson is a little confused by this, and of course you can see the moral of the story. The moral, as he told his grandson, is, you know, people will pretty much create their own realities, and the reality that you experience in any given place is really a reflection of who you are. So that's the moral of the story, and I really believe that. I really believe that what you tend to experience is going to be a reflection, because, you know, spiritually speaking, metaphysically speaking, there's only one of us out there. So the reality that you experience is a reflection of what you expect, a reflection of who you are, and the world reflects that back to you. Now, there are certain things that are different. People definitely are friendlier here in the Pacific. But to a certain extent, I find, now from my own experience as well as the experience of others, that you tend to get what you expect. There is such a thing called confirmation bias, and you will more often than not be biased towards experiences and interpretations of experiences that tend to confirm things you already believe. So if to give you some example, if you believe that all men are a certain way, or if you believe all women are a certain way, if you believe all Americans are a certain way, or all Pacific Islanders are a certain way, you will tend to seek out and to a certain degree even create experiences that don't exist in reality to confirm, so that you can say, see, I was right, they're all alike. And that is something that I've seen over and over again, where people have an expectation, have a belief system, and they come here and that belief system is reflected in their experiences. And you know, it's I can tell you from my own experience, every time I go to China or wherever I go, Vietnam, China, Thailand, Laos, the reception is always great. You know, people roll out the red carpet. You know, in China, people are very friendly and welcoming, and come up to me and, you know, want to interact, want to take pictures, want to be my friend. So that's my experience. But there was one day that I was walking through the streets of Hainan, a little island off the south coast of China, and for whatever reason I was in my New York mode. I was in my head walking alone, and I'm walking on the street, and on the other side of the street, I'm getting closer to where my hostel is, and I see a group of Chinese guys, and they're staring at me. And in my mind, again, for whatever reason, I just happen to be in New York mode, I'm starting to, you know, have thoughts in my mind about, you know, what are these guys staring at, you know, and here's the thing, you know, you can make up stuff that doesn't exist, and I've seen it happen. And you can make up a scenario in your mind, you can make up reasons in your mind as to why people are looking at you, why people are staring. So I'm in that zone, and I'm, you know, getting closer to them, and my, you know, brow is furrowed, and I'm not smiling, and it's only when I get close enough to them that, you know, they all start smiling and give me a thumbs up. And, you know, so it was just they were happy to see a foreigner. They, you know, I've never seen a Jamaican walking through the streets of Hainan, so I think those same guys maybe later on came and asked me if I wanted to hang out and smoke with them. But so my point is that you can create in your mind even things that don't exist. So one of my best bits of advice is, as much as possible, for you to come with an open mind, come with a clean slate. And it's a very difficult thing to do, because if you've been steeped in a certain reality, if you believe things are a certain way, it's very difficult for you to see reality in any other way. Hopefully, being here long enough and seeing certain realities, and hopefully having, you know, having it confirmed by other people who will say, yeah, they're pretty friendly here, and, you know, you'll start to realize that a different reality is possible and does exist. But it is also true that if you come here with a certain amount of cynicism, if you come here with a certain amount of a certain pessimistic outlook and expectations of people, then you can bring that reality with you, and sadly create that reality even when it doesn't exist, and therefore confirm things that you already believe. So it's a very tricky question, because so to wrap up, what's more important than how locals perceive you is how you perceive yourself in relation to the rest of the world, because there's a very good chance that is what you will end up creating if you're not careful. So now, at the same time, I've also run into people who have had bad experiences, and again, it could be, you know, because they were creating them, making them up. But people have said that there was one guest I had, a tour client, who mentioned that her daughter was working in Hawaii and she didn't feel welcome there. So there could be other factors, it could be her personality, it could be, but what I delved a little deeper, and what I thought was interesting was that this person worked in education, and I've never worked as an employee here on this side of the world, so I don't know what the dynamics are of that interaction. So it could be something to do with, a mainlander or foreigner having an influence, an outsized influence on the values that children are being raised under. So I could see a scenario, for example, where people might be suspicious or wary of someone coming from the outside teaching their children. Again, I'm just speculating because I don't know. So there could be other factors, could be other dynamics that could explain why someone may feel welcomed or not welcomed. It could have to do with, the job that they're doing or what have you. But I think in a lot of cases, people are just being shown what their inherent and their predisposed biases are. So that's my take on that question. Thanks again, Apau Hawaii Tourist, for asking the question, and I hope that's helpful. So essentially, come here with an open mind, with an open slate, and create your own reality here on Saipan and anywhere that you go, whether it's Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, or wherever. You have the ability to create your own reality.
Hear what a man say.